All right, guys. So thank you for joining us. This is our July image competition discussion, where we are going to talk about some images that have potential to go into image competition. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to critique the images, talk about the merits of those images, the pros and cons, ways to tweak them and test them. Maybe you use that for image competition. Maybe you use that just to improve the work. If you're watching this on YouTube, which I'm assuming many of you will be, make sure that you check out IEPPV.com for the next one. We do these every other month. We actually do them a couple weeks before image competition, which is every other month. So we got that coming up. And we do have a special guest with us today. We've got Frederick Van Johnson from This Week in Photo. Frederick, go ahead and say hi. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where people can find you and stalk you and all the fun stuff.
You can stalk me at thisweekinphoto.com. Thanks for having me on, Troy. I'm excited to chat about images, as you and I do pretty much every other week or often. Just a little bit about me. My elevator pitch is I am a photographer, marketer, podcaster. Been doing this stuff since a couple of those things since 1989, and so I feel like we were having a conversation earlier today. I feel like I can say with authority that I have been a photographer since 1989, a professional photographer, i.e., getting money for it since 1989. If you have any questions about that, I'm happy to tell you. But yeah, I started my career in the United States Air Force as a combat photojournalist, got out of the Air Force, came to Silicon Valley during the dot-com explosion, joined a little company, or first I joined a company called the San Jose Mercury News, and then went on to Yahoo, then Apple, then Adobe, and then on to my own thing, which is This Week in Photo, which is a podcast and a community and an educational resource for photographers. And just last year, actually about a year, actually exactly a year from August 1st, a year back, my company was acquired by SmugMug. So now This Week in Photo is officially a division of the SmugMug Corporation. So, and that's where we are. So I continue to do the podcast. I continue to do all the things I love. Lately, it's included a lot of artificial intelligence discussion and controversy and arguments, but that's what it's all about. So that's me. That's what I do.
Yeah, can't believe it's been almost a year, right at a year since that happened. Wow, it's gone
It seems
fast.
like yesterday, right? It seems like I
I
just told
know,
you, hey, Troy, guess what, right?
man. I know. And we got Brad Toms. Brad Toms is he's a member of IEPPV board. He's on the board. I'm the IEPPV president, if nobody knows. But Brad him and Kim run our image competition. And Brad, why don't you tell us a little bit about, we have an upcoming competition, what date that is, and
Sure.
why somebody should enter.
Well, sure. Our next image competition is July 19th. I believe that's Wednesday the 19th. And heck, there are a lot of good reasons to enter. But I think if you really want to grow as a photographer, improve your photography, get excellent feedback from judges on how to make your images better, I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah. You got to be thick-skinned, as do you, for any time anybody's critiquing your images. That's the hardest thing for any of us to do, but it's also the best way for us to learn. So, and for those that don't know, at IEPPV, we are doing our image competitions in person. So we're doing them at the Hampton Inn East in Corona. There's two Hampton Inns. This is the one off the 91. And so you can come in live, you can sit there, you can hang out, you can get there at like 5:30, you can bring food and drink and sit at the back, and then we start the image competition at like 6:30. The judges are all virtual, and so you'll be sitting there looking at a screen, but there'll be other humans in the room, so you can sit in the back and make fun and point fingers and do that kind of stuff. The reason that we're doing the judges virtually is because, as we know, in Southern California, traffic is a nightmare. And so it's wonderful that we can bring in judges, from around the world that can't drive here. So that's one of our big benefits of bringing them in virtually. So, and who doesn't love Zoom more, right? So I know. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump in. Now, any of you guys that are here with us, please don't hesitate to jump in with questions. Questions are important for you. Questions are important for, people watching who may not be asking those questions. As I bring up an image, Frederick and I will talk about it. Brad, if you got some feedback, let us know as well. Anybody, right? Let's just talk about these images in general. We can assign scores to them, we'll tell you whether we think that they would do well in competition and other aspects of those images. So, and let me go ahead and share. All right, so you should be able to see my capture one.
Yes.
There we go. There we go. So this, Frederick, I'll let you go ahead and start. There we go. And if this is
so
your
how do we do these? Is it just like our normal TWIP critiques,
yeah.
or are there any other parameters?
Nope.
Wide open.
Wide open. Okay.
Yeah, better to be frank and honest than not, and that's totally fine.
Okay. Constructive criticism, right?
Yes, and we don't have a title, so remember this is going into competition, so a little differently than what you and I do. The presentation matters. Potentially, if there's a title, that would matter. So we can discuss that. So I'll just let you go ahead and jump right in on this one.
Okay. All right. So my first thoughts of this shot are, let me zoom in a little bit on it. Okay. I don't know if is it sharp, Troy? I can't tell from the zoom and the compression that Zoom's adding to this. Is it sharp all the way through on those feathers?
Yeah,
Looks like it.
It's pretty, it's pretty sharp.
Okay. Yeah. It was compressing the heck out of it on this side. Yeah. It looks great. So my first thoughts are great shot. I love the high key. I love the contrast, or the high contrast look of this, and the sort of it's almost an illustration. I could see this on a book cover, or hanging on a wall somewhere. It's beautiful. So when I look at it from that standpoint, yeah, Ace is right on. I like the border treatment. I like the key line around the edge with the sort of trapping the image in the middle. That makes a lot of sense to me. I'm getting a little lost in all the white, because I know that was the whole idea, and that's the whole idea of having a high contrast image. But I'm getting a little lost as to where this guy is in this void of white. And I know this particular bird, they stand like this with one leg up, but not everybody will know that. So it may look peculiar without that second leg in there. If some people are wondering why is there only one leg on the bird, and there's nothing the photographer can do about that. Of course, that's just the way this particular animal behaves. But I love the gnarly wood that the bird is standing on. I love the way that it's composed so that it's off to the left and directing you back into the frame with the direction that the bird is looking and the arc of the branch that the bird is sitting on. The only thing is I'm a little bit put off by the story of this. Is there a definitive story behind this photo? And again, Troy, you say this is for competition. I don't know if that factors in when you're judging for competition, but I feel like I'm looking at a great shot of this particular bird on a branch, but I don't have any other context for story around that. But great shot. This is one I'd hang in my house, for sure. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I totally agree. Where I'm struggling with, is this feels like it was cut out. And the reason that I say that is because even without zooming in, the edge of this branch does not look natural.
Right.
And
I didn't see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're really missing that that natural shadowing and curvature of that particular branch. So I really struggle with that. Also, just like putting anything on like stark black, putting it on stark white is not always the best thing. And I feel like this needs a little bit of foundation for it.
Something. Yeah.
I'm not sure what was naturally in the frame or in the image that maybe you removed. I think the direction is fantastic. I love how stark it is. But I would also suggest that, maybe this is cropped Oh, I got to change the format. I think we have too much headroom on this guy. So what I would suggest is to make it maybe a little bit more horizontal. Maybe something like that. And if you notice, like the right here now, we have our subject on thirds. So I think that's a much more powerful crop as opposed to here we go. Let me go back. I should have made a copy of the image, but I didn't. There we go. Yeah, I think we just have too much headroom in here is what I'm kind of struggling with. So, but most definitely the sense that the branch is cut out. That's what really bothers me. I can really kind of feel that. So
because there's no subtle gradation on the edges there. It's almost like binary. Either there's data there or nothing where the white is. There's no gradual sort of flow, right?
Yeah, and you got to imagine that this is about the magnification that a judge is going to see it like on full screen. And now that we're doing our competitions virtually, the judge is going to be able to zoom in on his screen. Not all judges will know how to do that, but certain judges will know, and they'll zoom in and they'll look at this branch and they'll be like, that is not natural. So gotta keep an eye on that. And I think you could probably do a sky swap in Photoshop that could bring in something really super subtle and really minimalistic, like a soft pastel rolling hills with a fog layer, like just 10%, just something to give it a base. Could really be powerful.
So. Yeah, I agree. If they did that, Troy, if they added sort of a base layer in there to give a little bit more meat to the image, would you suggest that they constrain it inside of that key line or extend it to the borders and maintain the key line where it is?
I would do it inside the key line. Because
okay, so then you have a white border around.
Yeah, because this image is very much high key, and I think it's beautiful as high key. Which let me just say, a lot of images do not do well in competition in high key, for no other reason than you might have a judge sitting in a dark room with his monitor on, and this comes on and it's blinding. It's not fair, right? It's not ideal, but it's not like looking at a print that has the same light reflectance or a little bit more light reflectance than you would a darker print. This is significantly brighter. So you're going to scare the judges a little bit. So if they're fragile, sometimes the judges are fragile, so you got to be careful. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this one before we go to the next image?
That's my image, Troy. And actually, it's not the tree's not cut out. What happened is that's artifacts of trying to get it to high key. So what's happening is it's blowing out some of the detail in there. So and I knew that was an issue when I submitted it, but I wanted to get an idea of whether the high key worked or not. And when the photo was taken, it was actually like really just foggy out. So it was just kind of a gray blue sky behind the bird. And I agree. I almost put some color back into it because it was just so white. But I just wanted to get your feedback and Frederick's feedback and to see if that is something that will work or not work. So
yeah, I think it'll work, and I think that blending those tonal ranges can really help, right? Because you want to have depth not only in our focus, but we want depth in our lighting. We want our lighting to give us depth. And if it's stark and it becomes like a lithograph, then it doesn't really draw us in anymore. And that's what's happening with your branch is the branch, you've sort of clipped the tonality shoulder. Yeah. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. I look forward to seeing what this one turns into.
Yeah, you could almost push this into an illustration too. I mean, if you wanted to go that far, Brad, it's it almost looks it's close to being a charcoal kind of line art piece of art already.
Right.
And the bird is beautiful. I mean, it's nice and sharp. And to Frederick's comment, you're absolutely right, Frederick. Like there's a bunch of photographers that are going to look at that and they're not going to understand it. But if you showed this bird with two legs down and it was a bird photographer, he's going to tell you that it doesn't look as good, right? He's going to be like, well, he must have just landed, or so there's a catch-20. Like, who are your judges?
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Super cool. All right, so let's jump to our next image. Here we go. This one right here. Now let me get off of the crop tool so I don't see those little lines. So first and foremost, like this image I thought was really fun. I thought this was really interesting. I love the blur effect. I love the presentation with that wonderful chin at the bottom. Nice presentation. I think this is really, really powerful. There's not really a lot that you could do to this image beyond where it is right now. So I'm just going to speak to the idea of like, how do I think a judge would appreciate this? And I think depending again on the judge, this one might be tough to merit, not because it isn't a good photo, but because it doesn't have like a main subject with a leading line and all the technicals and all the sophistication that we want in an image. And when you've got like the 12 elements where you're looking at like complexity and artistic expression and think technicality and things like that, this one feels like it might be a little bit simpler in the competition. So it really depends on your judges. But that being said, I like the image a lot. So if I was a judge and I was looking at this, I would consider all those things. And I would probably be between 78 and 80. I might merit it. I don't know. We got this hot spot over here on the left. That isn't our subject. Our subject is really like maybe the top right, where you can see the flower itself is the sharpest. So some tonal variations in there, some dodging and burning would really help. Give me a subject to find in there, and then you might be closer to a merit. So what do you think, Frederick?
Yeah, I agree. I think when I look at this shot, I see my subject as being the white flowers, right, with the yellow or the oranges, the orange middle or pistils or whatever that is in the middle. The green, obviously, this is where the flowers were growing, but I think from a aesthetic standpoint, I might try to push that back a little bit to make the flowers stand out a little more, or the white of the flowers stand out a little more, so that you're in capture one, Troy, you could just select the range of greens and browns that comprise that background and just drop their values, or bring the values of like you did, bring the values of the whites up a little bit, just to create a little bit more saturate or a little bit more separation to make them pop out of there. See, just like that, they start looking more ghostly and ethereal, and they start taking on personalities versus them getting lost in that forest of green. And the other thing is I might lose some of that right side of the frame there, because it's not the I guess camera left, right side, my right. We're over there. There's not a whole lot going on there, so you get lost in that little abyss when the real action of this shot is happening right in the middle, just to the left there. So I would maybe lose that right side, that right maybe eighth of the frame, and I think that'd be a lot stronger if you punched in a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I was actually looking at something maybe more. See, this one guy on the bottom kind of bugs me, but we can kind of fix him. Because I feel like this is our subject right here. And let's see, let's add a radio gradient. So now remember, we're working on a JPEG, so there's no way that it's gonna tone correctly, but you get the idea. So something of that nature.
Yeah.
Where the flower is our hero. It's obvious that's the flower you want me to look at.
Yeah.
versus this, where we've got competing elements going on inside the frame. We got this bright spot all the way over on the left that's begging for our attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to be fair, in competition,
crowd.
yeah, and to be fair, in competition, these are the things that they're gonna dissect, right? Absolutely are gonna, like, oh, what am I looking at? Where's my leading lines? Where's the rule of thirds? Are we using any of that stuff? So possibly maybe that's too tight a crop, but you gotta kind of get the sense, the idea, right? We got to play with that just a little bit.
Yeah, you need a star. You need a star or a hero, like Troy says, and then the rest become the supporting characters of the story that's playing out in this single frame. If you don't have and not every shot needs a supporting character. Sometimes it's a shot of a crowd, right? Like this, as it is, would be a shot of a crowd where none of the individuals are dominant over the rest. But in competition or in photography, I think you want to lean towards having a central focus in the shot or a hero in the shot where the rest of the story can play out. I think our minds kind of want that. We want something dominant in the frame to latch onto and say, oh, this is what the artist wanted me to look at, right? And then you kind of meander around the rest of the frame. So
exactly. Any other comments on this one?
No, that was mine. I appreciate the feedback on it because it was kind of a new technique and I really didn't know how it was going to be received. So it's really helpful.
Yeah, it's really neat. Remember, no matter what kind of technique we use or what kind of filters we apply or post-processing or all the other things, we still have to come back to the basics where we're using the rule of thirds, where we're using, depth perception, focus, light, the, foreground, middle ground, background, compositional elements, who's our hero, who's our secondary hero. And to be fair, a lot of this stuff, and Frederick and I, we have big banters about this a lot. Like, one can be art that people can just appreciate, but when you're going to go to competition, all the rules change.
Right.
It gets very narrow. So
you got to cook what the chefs like.
Yes. Yes. All right. So here's another one. I'm assuming
part two.
Yeah, part two. I'll jump in on this one, and
Sure.
just right away, I don't think this type of image is going to merit. I don't think that in competition that a lot of judges are going to look at this and get a sense of artful. I'm trying to think of the right words. We all know how it's made. And unless it's done in a way that is subtle or adds to the image, then it just becomes about the effect.
Yeah.
And judges in general in competition, they're just not gonna lean into that. So
yeah, I agree. I think the way as a consumer of images, when I look at images, I'm always looking for a little hook or a little semblance of story. And having been in this industry so long, I look at, if a shot like this, I look at, okay, this is a great shot, but it looks more like this would be in a magazine or a tutorial that's teaching me how to do that the drag shutter effect, right? But there isn't a story or even a secondary hook or a hero in the story in the shot for me to latch onto. It's technically executed correctly, but when I look at it, like I said, I'm thinking of, oh, this is drag shutter. That's what I'm thinking first versus, or even if I wasn't a photographer, didn't understand how the shot was made, I'd be looking at it thinking, oh, what a interesting shot, an interesting technique this photographer used on this versus this, having a story hook me and draw me into the shot.
I agree. And I think that an image like this begs to be balanced as well, and maybe making it a little bit more abstract and getting into monochromatic toning. So even if you were to tone this, let's say, like, if we were to tone it, I know I'm completely messing with your image now. Let's see, let me get back, make that color, go to toning. So if you were to add some and this is where you get into illustrative, right? Where you can just be really super creative and take something like this and do something really neat with it. where I'm just giving it like some split toning. The shadows are cold. And now you have this thing that I really like this a lot more, because it takes me a second to figure out what it is. And it's only in that little essence in the lower left-hand corner do I recognize, like, oh, that's a flower. Like, that's really cool. So
I do like that.
So, you know, sometimes our vision isn't what we photograph. And there's this disconnect between how we saw it and how we wanted it to sort of like what we wanted it to tell the story. And it doesn't, we just, maybe we didn't have the Photoshop skills or the photography skills at the time to like carry that forward. So, and you have some dust spots. There's a couple dust spots. There's one there. There's one there. There's one there. I can see dust spots in the dark. I do not know why. Yeah, but you can clearly see it. It's right there.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't panic about it in your camera. Like don't stress over it. Just know they're there, and make sure you remove them. Especially if you're going to enter it in competition or print it big and sell it to a client. You don't want that in there.
Yeah, we know about that, right, Troy?
Yes, we do. Thank you for that, Brad.
I just wanted to bring it up.
And that's for another story. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. All right. And then we got this one. So Maggie, this is yours too, I assume?
Yeah. I was having fun with technique.
I like
that's
it.
How you learn. Yeah.
I like it. I think a lot of the same things we talked about already apply. Frederick, did you have any additional thoughts on this?
No, yeah, a lot of the same things apply, so I won't repeat them, but I like the what you've done here with the kind of the reverse, or the it almost looks like they're falling, like raindrops or something falling from the sky. Yeah, I think were you intending to do that, to kind of simulate that? Yeah,
flowers.
Yeah, it's motion, and it's interesting from the standpoint of something in motion that wouldn't ordinarily be in motion like this. So a shot like this with all the vertical in there, you might, Troy, maybe you could try maybe even rotating it diagonally or something. So we've got diagonal lines, or, you know, almost like a hailstorm of these flowers coming down diagonal.
Yeah, no, you're right. No,
yeah, like that. Yeah,
we got to crop it a lot.
Never thought to do that.
Yeah. So now you're using the geometry of the shot, all the lines in there as a compositional element, along with the drag shutter technique.
Right.
Yeah, there's not what colors do we have in here? So I'm just trying to think about, okay, we got greens and pinks. So like if we took the green.
Looks like a meteor shower of flowers.
There we go. So something when you're converting things to black and white, like I realize like Nick filters and some of those things are really popular, but you don't need them. What you need to do is you need to look at your image and you need to say to yourself, what do I want to have separation from in this image, in my black and white? And in this case, I've got, we'll call it pinks and greens, right? Cyans and cyan and magentas. So when you convert it to black and white, and you can do this in Lightroom or Capture One, you can grab that particular color and you can decide, like, do I want to make the greens brighter or do I want to make them darker? And then I can grab like the reds or the pinks or whatever, and I can do the same thing. I can make them brighter or I can make them darker. And so now I can go through this image and I can create depth as a monochromatic image. Now nobody knows what it is. And then you can find a center subject and you can do a little dodging and burning around that. And boom, there you have this like amazing abstract piece of art.
Yeah, you can even go further and even rotate it so that the blurs are heading upward and to the right instead of downward and to the left. That would really confuse the viewer as to what is going on here, you know?
Yeah.
These flowers are really growing fast or something.
Yeah. So when you do this technique, Maggie, think about simplifying your composition, simplifying what's filling the frame. So you don't really need to have it full like this too. Maybe it's like a single flower or one or two flowers, like one flower that's in focus, the flowers in the background are softer out of focus. And then you apply this technique in a way that it adds abstractness or, you know, sort of motion to it.
Right.
When the frame is busy, the eye doesn't really know where to go to. And in a shot like this, everything has equal value. Everything, you know, from this area up here in the top left to this area over here, you know, this little guy down here, they all have the same value. They're all drawing us in the same. And so it doesn't lead us through the image. So.
Got it. Thank you.
You got it. All right. I'm going to jump into.
But kudos for experimenting with different techniques, right? That's it
Thank
right
you.
there. Because you add, once you've done it a couple of times, you sort of add that new device to your Batmobile or your Batman tool belt, right? So for the next time, you're like, oh, maybe I should drag the shutter on this one.
Yes.
Right. Exactly. I started playing with this one while you were talking, Frederick. So I was gonna, I'll let you go ahead and jump in on this one. I'll go back.
Okay. So this shot, I see a lot of detail in here. I'm a little lost because my brain wants to figure out what it is. But I think from the standpoint of just sort of adding more mystery to a shot like this, you might consider punching in a little bit so that you can, you know, kind of focus in on the detail of those little strands hanging down. And the other thing is that the upper right and the corners up there, like Troy, you're trying to do a dodge and burn on those areas up there. I don't feel like we need those areas. There's a lot of void, a lot of wasted pixels for the most part up there that aren't in support of the main character of the shot. Yeah, so when you punch in like this, even a little bit like that, we start being drawn into the image, and we see spokes at the bottom, and we start to understand, like, wow, is this a tire that's just been destroyed, or what's going? So it brings you into the mystery of the shot a little bit more. And then the other thing, a shot like this, you might consider taking it black and white as well, because as we say on the TWIP photo critiques all the time, consider if the color in the photo is in service of the overall story that you're trying to tell. If it's not, try maybe experiment with taking it out of there so that color doesn't become a distraction, and the detail of the shot can stand forward, can come forward a little bit more. So you can see how it looks with and without color. It's almost a different experience in black and white, where you're forced to kind of look at the detail and the different patterns in the shot. But overall, I like this one. This is definitely it pulls you in, and I might even crop in even closer and go even more abstract to make the viewer really wonder what this is. Leave a little bit of the spokes in there, you know, and some of the hairs in there, so that, you know, they can kind of start figuring it out, but make it a mystery, you know, and make it a mystery that they have to solve. Like this is beautiful, just like that.
Yeah, I agree. All those things. I was gonna start to edit the other image and do all that, and then, you know, we saw the same thing. So again, you know, like very much when you're in a space and you're standing there and you're looking at a thing, the way that our brain assembles images, you know, we look around at the scene, we smell the air, we remember the hike out to there, and, you know, then we see this really cool thing, and then we photograph it. And we have to ask ourselves when we're standing there, like, what about this element is what I like the most? And what don't I need to tell that story? And so everything that Frederick just did was absolutely right on. What I would do besides the crop, so I'll just go back to this one. So besides the crop, which I really do like, and I do like it being in black and white, is I would think about drawing attention with tonality. So what I might do is I might do a little burning. So we'll bring down the brightness. So what I might do is I might come in here, being very careful not to overdo it, you know, with the threads that are in that tire. Is this out in Joshua Tree? I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I know this tire well. I have photographed it hundreds of times, And I've
Really?
seen it. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm guessing this is probably on the way to Wall Street, or it's one of the cars at Wall Street.
It's at Wall Street.
Okay, yeah. See, it's like a friend. You've been there. Um, so let me reset this one so you can kind of see the before and after. So I think I really love this.
Yeah.
Even cropping a little tighter, like Frederick suggested, that's really your personal preference. How much do you want to tell the judges? But I think this is the story you want to tell, not to put words in the artist's mouth. I don't think everything in this is the story you want to tell.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of distractions.
Yeah, especially that fender up there is in the way.
Yeah. So these guys, those are traps. They're called traps because what happens is our brain sees them and we want to know what they are. And it takes us away from the main subject. So especially in competition, and I would say this is also a good rule for any kind of fine art that you're doing, is the least amount of content in the image, the best. And if you're a painter or a painter was to paint this, would they paint in these corners? Like, would they take the time to paint those in there?
Mm-mm.
Probably not, right? Because they don't serve the image. So I think this is your somewhere in there, somewhere in between whatever is your image. And from a competition standpoint, I would probably merit this. I would probably give this an 80 and 81. As long as, we had good shadow detail, good highlight detail, good contrast range, everything was nice and sharp, and we had this really wonderful composition. And if you kept this crop, I would make sure I would burn or clone out that little triangle up there for sure, right? That little guy right there.
Gotcha.
Judges like me will pick on that. Judges like Frederick will pick on that.
You might even consider inverting this. I'd love to see how this looks inverted to kind of give the illusion that these things are growing or something, because it kind of looks almost like plants, right? No, inverted, like rotated, inverted.
Oh, I was thinking, totally inverted, but
no, rotated. What is it? 180 degrees. Yeah, like that.
Wow.
Oh my God, that's like super weird now, isn't it?
Right? It was like some sort of alien plant that you shouldn't be getting close to.
Oh my God, that is so weird. That's actually uncomfortable.
I bet you no one ever shot that tire like that.
Yeah. And then you can tell everybody I had to lay on my back and I had to...
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. All right. Well done.
Thank you.
We'll jump into this one. Frederick, I'll let you start on this guy. Make sure it's
Joshua. Massive 100-plus-year-old Joshua tree out there, it looks like. Yeah, this is a great shot, right? So it takes me back to the one time that I had a chance to visit Death Valley. These guys were all over the place. And I love the backlighting of this. And then, not only is it backlit, but we have a lot of detail in the front of it. It would have been very easy, I'm sure. And maybe you pulled it out in post, but, to have this, do a shot like this and just let it go completely silhouette, which would have been fine, for a shot like this. I think there may be even two shots here where you have this shot that looks great. This could be a poster or in a magazine or a tourist guide or something. But then another version of it might be a completely silhouetted version where you just have the impression of what a Joshua tree would look like without all the foreground detail and all that stuff in there, because it's very contrasty by definition. So yeah, I like it. I like the ordinarily I would question the choice of cropping off the top and the bottom edges of that, but I think if that's the intention, it brings you into the shot and makes it feel even more sort of grandiose, the Joshua tree itself. And I like the exposure. I really like that background, or you place the sun behind the tree or behind the Joshua tree so that we kind of have that focal point. We're looking towards the middle and then branching out into its branches. So yeah, good shot as is, but maybe experiment with high contrast and maybe a silhouette and see what that might look like. Also in black and white, see what a high contrast black and white might do for this. Troy, I wonder what an infrared shot of this tree would have rendered.
Oh yeah, infrared could have done really interesting things. It would have silhouetted dramatically for sure. The sky would have gone really dark, and the foreground, the shadow of the Joshua tree would have gone really dark. So, but you might get some really cool highlights around the edges where the sun is kind of reflecting off or highlighting the edges of those little spines up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, right away, the center of this is out of focus, and I can see
I didn't
it
see that.
even when it's small. I can see that it's out of focus, and that's a killer. So if a judge doesn't notice that, you'll be fortunate, but they will notice that. Most of them will notice that. It's not in focus. So hopefully that's just an out of focus issue and not a lens issue. But definitely check that because that center should be sharp. Now, luckily, my favorite part of this whole tree is over here. Like this is my favorite part of the tree. So you might be able to like crop some of this and tell a little bit different story, with that. See, that doesn't really work with that piece up there. So sometimes we just have to crop it and play with it and see. But that's my favorite part of the tree. Oh, go all the way back. Reset. There we go. Yeah. So fun shot, but everything Frederick said, it's got to be in focus. Gotcha. Not to be picky or anything. Brad's bird. You should title it Brad's bird.
That's the same one. You can move it.
I know. All right, let's look at this one. Frederick, go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, zoom in so I can make sure we're in focus. Let me see his eye. Are we sharp?
Yeah, we're sharp.
We're sharp. Good. Yeah. So yeah, really cool shot. Yeah. Look at that aircraft, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can only hope to be that efficient, right? With the things we build. Yeah, really cool shot. I love it. This is an example of peak action, kind of grabbing a tack sharp shot like this. I think back in the day, this was a 1 in a million shot back in the day, with film and long lenses and limited latitude or sensitivity on our film, being able to catch and freeze a shot like this of a bird in motion. This was really, really hard to do. Not to diminish what the artist did here, but yeah, it was really hard to get a shot like this back in the day. But this shot, yeah, I like it. This is a very textbook shot. There's no other competing elements in the frame to pull you away from the bird, which means I'm drawn into the bird. So my first thing, of course, as a mammal, I'm going to look at the eyes. So I see the eyes, and then I'm wondering what the bird is looking at. Then I follow through the rest of the bird down his neck and back to the tips of his feet, which are pointed perfectly as he, spans the wings out like that. So this is really cool. If I were to change anything on this shot, I might give it a hair more room around the animal on the top, the bottom, and the left, just to give it a space to kind of, or I mean, the top, the bottom, and the right rather, to give it a space to sort of move into, and make it it's still 100% about the bird, but I want to, just a little bit of where this bird is going, so he has a place to move. He doesn't feel so trapped in the frame. But great shot overall. Yeah, very cool. Troy, your Z9 will do this in its sleep, right? These kind of shots.
Yeah, it'll track it. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure I wanted to see where the bird's eye landed on the image, and I think that it's nice that it's landing on that right third. I do think that what Frederick said is absolutely true. I do think that we do need a little more space in front of and maybe around the bird, because it does feel a little bit tight. Let me see. Oh yeah, there we go.
You need some place to go, right?
Yeah, it needs some place to go. So it just needs some more room to fly into it. And I'm trying to figure out, like, did I zoom or did I crop it? I think I maybe cropped it. Oh, there we go. I thought that was kind of weird. The presentation is really nice. I love the heavy border and the heavy footer on there. That's really nice. What you might want to do, though, if you don't really want to add that space to the right, is actually take this image and bump it to the top left corner and take a little bit of the space off the bottom of the mat so that the space in front of the bird is actually on the mat, right? And so instead of creating a chin, you're going to create like something in front of it, and that'll give it a sense of more space to fly into as well. So I would suggest trying that. And of course, as we always do, how's it look in black and white? And for me, I think it's way more powerful in black and white. I think right away I'm drawn into the face. I'm drawn right into the eye, right into, you know, the brighter plumage behind the eye, where I don't think the color is serving that. It feels colder. I understand that's the natural color, but I think from you know, personal preference, I think that going monochromatic and maybe bumping a little bit of contrast, you know, to pull those highlights up, to me, that's so much more powerful. I see the texture in the feathers now underneath the wing. I see all that plumage on the breast of the bird. It's like man, that to me is really nice. So it's up to the maker, of course, but I would merit that. This, I would probably do a protest vote. I'd probably do a protest score, you know, like 78, 79, hoping one of the judges saw something I didn't see and we would maybe discuss it, you know. I feel I could argue for this one being a merit. So good job. Any other comments on this one? Anybody? Okay, let's go to our next one. I'm guessing this is Craig Stamfleet. I think this is
Craig's.
Yeah, I was gonna say this. I think this is that lighthouse out there somewhere. I love this shot. I think that it's super cool. I love the composition of this, and you know, the moving clouds and how they're moving on a diagonal. I think that's really, really wonderful. I want to make sure that the vertical lines in that rail are vertical. Because it has an optical illusion that it's not, and it's pretty darn close. I don't know how you could make it better. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, it's really good. So yeah, I love it. Looking at it though, I wish the tone wasn't muted over the whole image. I wish that the toning had a little bit more depth in it. But I'm just being picky. What do you think, Frederick?
Yeah, so this one is interesting. I agree with you. I think the lighthouse, even if the vertical lines are technically vertical, I probably would have cheated to the left, rotated to the left a little bit to compensate for the optical illusion that it's tilted, because it feels like it is tilted a little bit to the right. Secondly, I need more space around it, like on the right and the top, particularly. I feel like when I look at these, I've said this a couple times when we do our critique. I feel like when subjects or objects are too close to the edge of the frame, I just think of the edge of the frame as being magnetic. Like if you get too close, it's just going to get stuck. You know, it's going to pull over all the way to that side. So you need just a little bit of cushion around the edge, because it reduces, I feel like, the tension in the overall image when they have a little bit of cushion between themselves and the edge. And like on that ridge down below, like right on the bottom of where the light ends, Troy, that little ledge there that's cut off, I maybe bring the lighthouse back to the left a little bit so all of that is visible versus being cut off.
Right.
So I can kind of, you know, otherwise it feels like, why is that cut off? Why is that little bit not important? And why is it so close to the edge of the frame when there's so much other space on the left of the frame? And then give me a little bit more space at the top. Those are my major criticisms of this shot. If you just rotate a little bit and then pull out, maybe it's maybe you can just pull out a little bit, or if the shot doesn't have the detail, figure out how to add a little bit more space on the right side using whatever tools. I think that'd make it a little bit more successful.
Right. Yeah,
Is
I
that spire? Is the spire at the top vertical, Troy? That weather vane?
Yep. Yeah,
It is
while you were
vertical. Yeah.
while you were talking, I brought the crop tool in, and it's like all the lines in there are vertical, but it
Mhm.
doesn't feel vertical.
Right.
And
Right.
maybe it's because it's too close to the edge, and then you got those diagonals. Yeah, I really feel like the main subject of this is shoved too far to the edge of the frame.
Yes.
I
100%.
yeah, it needs some more space around it. So, Craig, if you're watching this, fix that and resubmit. Moving on. So I'm guessing this is one of Craig's, right? Am I
Yes,
guessing
it
Craig?
is.
Yeah. Yeah, he does a lot of architecture too. Um, I'll jump in on this one. Uh, I love this one right away. One of my first things is I love how the chair's in focus and the rest of the background is slightly out. And I think that's wonderful because, it makes me want to sit in that chair. It makes me feel like that's my subject and that's the hero and that's where I want to be. And so I just absolutely, absolutely love that. There's only really two elements in this that I don't really like a lot. And the first one is I think there's too much room on the left-hand side. Now, maybe
Mhm.
he's left that way because they want to show the room and they want to show the wall. But I think that if, like from an architectural standpoint, if we're just going to be picky about the image, um, I don't think that we need, as much of that wall over there as we have. So I would probably do something like that. But architecturally, if that's important, then definitely do that. The second thing is the light color in this lamp is blue, and you've got like warmer tones back in these cubbies.
Yeah.
And you absolutely in architecture will have to have the same color tones throughout the image. So that's going to be super critical, especially if you have like a Jim Doyle judging your image, who's a great architectural photographer. He's going to be like, that
Good
color's off.
catch.
You need to fix that color.
I even think the light in the upper left corner is a little warmer than everything else.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you know what? You might be right. Yeah, yeah, you might be absolutely right. So, color harmony throughout the image is really, really critical. Consistency in competition. MLS listings may not care. So,
Yeah.
Frederick, what do you think?
Yeah, so compositionally, a couple of comments on this. I think on the bit of furniture in the lower right there, I would get rid of that because that's taking me out of the frame a little bit and making me wonder what that is. Is it another chair sitting there? Is it another bit of furniture? In either case, it's taking me away from the overall intent of the image. So I would get that out of there. And the other thing that takes me out is the rectangle on the wall on the left, the brown the tall thing. What I'm not sure
Okay.
what that is. So I would lose that. And yeah, fairly easy to get rid of it. I agree with you guys on the color balance. We got a different color light coming from that floor lamp as on the shelves. So I would do something about that. I'm not exactly sure what you do. And on the far left, there's that strip there. Trey, you just cropped it out. But the far left, there's that strip of wall, the corner, that's also a little distracting because it takes me to it starts making me think what's around that corner, and I start trying to build an architecture of what this room is. Whereas if that wasn't there, I'm just in the room. With that there, I feel like I know, oh, this is a nook in a house, maybe just that little strip makes me start thinking that. So I might lose that out of there. And then the last thing is Craig Stampley will have to come clean on this. Maybe not, but I feel like there was some AI used on this shot. Perhaps Craig Stampley. So come clean if it was. I'm curious. But I feel like there may have been a little bit of augmented generative fill used on here in some spots to get it to where it is. So, but otherwise, overall, I mean, great shot. All the comments that I just made are moot if this was in a magazine. Someone just is paging through the magazine and saw this. This is completely, be a great shot as is without any of the changes. But I think it'd be stronger when you start removing those elements like the lower right and the upper left and the far left bar
Yeah.
of wall or corner. But yeah, cool shot, Craig.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when you start to get into competition and you have an image like this that's really good, right? Right away, the lines are there, things are in focus, compositionally, it's really wonderful. Then it's the little things that matter the most. And like the color, like, Brad pointed out, the top left definitely looks brighter than the bottom left, than the center, than the lamp. And that's also contaminating the rest of the room. So definitely look at that color harmony throughout being consistent. So the whites are white and the yellows are yellows and the light all looks the same.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
And that shouldn't really be too difficult to do. I mean, like in Capture One, I could select the blue tones, make a selection, and I could convert that into a warmer tone. Definitely something you'd have to do on a raw file, though. You couldn't do it on JPEG. It just everything falls apart. But I like it. Good job. All right. Our next image. This looks like Yellowstone.
Smell the
Frederick.
sulfur. You can smell it, right?
Yeah. You can smell it.
Yeah. You can smell the sulfur. Yeah, this looks almost prehistoric. Yeah, this is an interesting shot. Looking at it, this feels like there's a struggle going on in this shot. There's a struggle between me being interested in that sulfur sort of deposit in the middle and what's forming it. I see the spray off the top of there, so I'm kind of taken in there and I get lost. But overall, then it's got a sort of a grandeur, almost landscapey feel to it as well, that puts it in a place. But I'm not getting a whole lot of detail and a whole lot of direction in either of those. So I would either likely maybe choose to go lean into landscape, in which cases you're going to go wider and make the sulfuric, whatever this is, deposit a supporting character of the overall vista that you're looking at, and make that sort of the shot. It's look at the grandeur of the scene and this little thing in the foreground or in the midground of it, or punch in to the sulfur deposit so I can see more detail in it, because I can't right now. I know there's a lot of interesting detail there, but I can't see it. So I either want to see that detail in it, or push it back so that I don't care so much about it. But yeah, interesting shot. Yeah. See, now I'm getting more detail. I can see, oh wow, look at that. Even the spray coming off the top, I start seeing that. The colors and the chemicals, whatever those deposits are, I can start seeing those. You can maybe pop those a little bit more with a little saturation and clarity in there to make those kind of stand out and pop out against the sky a little more. I feel like there's a lot of colors, a lot of detail in this image that we're not seeing because we're maybe too far away from it. And the artist made the choice to be so far away because they wanted to show the landscape or the vista. So you can only, I think in a shot like this, you have to make a choice. You want to show that vista, or do you want to punch in and show the detail of this amazing character in the foreground? Maybe this is two shots. I don't know.
Yeah. No, well said. It reminds me of something that Frank Peel said. Some of us know Frank Peel from IEPPV and stuff. And, he would always say, when he would look at an image like this, he would say, how is this different from any other shot anybody else would have taken in that same moment? Right? Are you just standing at the rail, lifting up your camera, taking that photo? Or did you make an effort to get somewhere else, to shoot from the ground, to shoot up, like to really change it? And the reason that I bring that up is that, you've got this depth of field throughout the entire photo. The clouds are competing with your foreground subject. Your middle ground is competing with your sky. And, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's really no separation. So all the things that Frederick said, but when you're standing there, think about your subject matter and can you get separation, right? How can you make this look different from just a traditional perspective? I would say that if you were to have been able to shoot this with, say, like a 24 and 85 1.4, right? So everything just beyond would have fallen out and everything in the foreground would have fallen out of focus. And you would have this silky, smooth bokeh in the clouds and everything. Man, that would have changed a lot.
Yeah, because in the end, you're the director, right, Troy? You are the director of the shot. So when you're creating the shot, it's a matter of you have to keep in mind, where do I want the viewer, the unseen viewer of this shot, what do I want them to take away from this? You know, if you give them everything, then you're giving them nothing, right? Because they're just like, oh, okay, that's, I could have seen that with my own eyes. But if you have the power through composition, lighting, lens choice for depth of field and all the things to literally take them, you know, you're drawing notes, you know, and you can play your music as they look through the frame, and that's your job to do that.
Yep. So this would be a fun image to bring into Photoshop, because right now Photoshop has object selection, and you can select your foreground and your background, create different layers. Yeah. It might not be the perfect selection, but you can play with this and get a sense, right? Play with this and you know, make the background softer, make the foreground, you know, more prominent. But here's the overall challenge with this image, is the lighting is not good. This is just flat lighting, and it's just the time of day. And sometimes that's just the nature of photographing nature and landscape, is like, it's a beautiful scene, it's wonderful, but the lighting isn't great. If you were there in the morning or in the evening, or the clouds opened up and you got this beautiful light coming through, scraping across our subject, that would change everything for this. So
yeah.
Time of day. Yeah,
well,
time of day and lighting.
Just FYI, it's not Yellowstone, and it is evening time. It's about 7:30 at night.
Oh, okay. It looks like Yellowstone, but you know, I don't know where else these things are.
It's the Fly Ranch Geyser in Nevada.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, the background didn't look Yellowstone-ish, but I didn't know where else they had these geysers. So yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, that's cool. I'm assuming this is yours, Kim?
Yes. That's why I know where it's at and what time of day it was taken.
Kim, was it very sulfur smelling out there?
It was not sulfur smelling out there, but it's very close to where Burning Man is, and the company that runs Burning Man actually owns this property now. And you can go on a nature walk, and you have about 3 minutes that you can take photographs of this thing. So,
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was on private property, and they weren't allowing anybody to see it for 10 years. They had it shut down, and nobody except like their friends could go see it. So now you can actually go see it, but they have tours twice a day. I don't know if it's every day during the week, but you can go at 2:00 or you can go at 5:30, and this is the last thing you see. So it's about 7:30 when you get to take the shot.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah,
and it just started to rain right as we got there. It was like, no.
And you got a couple dust spots, just pointing out. So just saying, there might be more somewhere, but I don't see them. So good job, Kim. All right, Frederick, you want to take this one?
Yeah, what a fun shot. Yeah, this is really cool. Are we, well, check focus for me, Troy. I can't do it on this side. Are we good all the way through?
Are we good?
Especially on the waterfall itself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good
like
focus.
It is. Yeah. Yeah, very good. Cool. Yeah, this is really cool. I think, yeah, it looks like it's in focus. So a shot like this, I think, yeah, this is a great crop of this, because it kind of just sort of takes you right into the middle. Obviously, our eyes are going to go to the brightest point in the scene, which is that waterfall area over there. I think this could have been even maybe a little bit more vertical, and could have lost a little bit of the mountainside on the left, because we're not really, we get the idea that it's granite or whatever on the left side of the frame, or a lot of it, but I don't think we need that much of it. Yeah, so just like that, just to lose a little bit of it and to bring us more into the frame itself. I love the overall composition. I would have loved to have seen where that water is going. Of course, you know, you're restricted by where you are, of course, but as a viewer, I want to see, you know, there's a mystery starting at the top with this glowing water going down. I want to see where it ends up at. So ideally there'd be a pool of water down there where we can see where it ends up. But yeah, I love the overall look of this shot. I love the glow of that almost like lava flowing down the side of that hill. So yeah, it's really cool. And I was thinking initially, I was thinking maybe I want more detail in that sky, maybe some wispy clouds or something up there. But I don't think so. I think it's great, just like this, leaving it as sort of a clear evening, sort of magic hour time, and you just came across this location and stopped to look at this beautiful waterfall, and the sky was clear, and boom, here you go. So yeah, I like it. I don't even think this would benefit from a black and white, of course, because you need the gold tones in that water.
Yeah, and I know that she didn't just come across it. Like this, you take like 6 months to plan to get. And there's probably, how many photographers were there, Kim?
Me and 5,000 of my closest photographer friends.
Yeah, yeah. This is the firefall in Yosemite. It's in the valley, and it only happens for like one day, maybe. And so it's very challenging. It's very challenging to get.
What is the glow? I've never seen this. What is it? Just lit like that, or what's happening?
Yeah, so off to the west where the sun is setting, if weather permits, the light will come in at a very low angle, and it just lights the waterfall. And yeah, I think it was discovered by Galen Rowell. If it was Galen Rowell, I don't remember who. But it's a huge thing. Like, you've got to look it up. You got to look up Firefall in Yosemite, and you will see the droves of human beings that cover the valley.
Wow.
Yeah, so you get
no
points for being
drones
there.
No drones allowed in Yosemite, right? So you couldn't get a nice
No
drone shot. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
I'm. This is a beautiful shot, and I've read about it and seen it's famous, and it's a great capture. My question is, would you consider removing the dead or the bare trees, twigs in the lower right-hand corner of it, and just remove those and leave the pine tree? Do you think that would add, or would that be too much of an edit?
Kim, you want to answer that? Because I know the answer to some of it.
I removed some of it, but I didn't remove all of it because I didn't have that much time.
Yeah, I can see where you removed it right here. And that's the challenge. So Jeff, I would, and this is because Kim had submitted this once before, I suggested she remove a bunch of these twigs and to diminish them. So absolutely, I think that it would be great for the image. However, if a judge looks at this and he's familiar with that location, he may not appreciate the fact that you took the tree out. So it's like there's a tree at Tunnel View in Yosemite on the right-hand side. It's a pine tree that's in every single shot, and it's in the worst possible location. I have heard judges just destroy somebody's image because they took it out. And so, would it make the image better? I think it would be nice without it, but that's not how it really looks. So, Kim, I love the image. I do think that you should play a little bit more with bringing some like heavier contrast, dehaze or something in there to get some more punch in those rocks. I don't think you need as much flatness in the contrast as you have. So I would definitely, try to bring up the rocks a little bit. I don't think it hurts the waterfall at all. I think it's really nice. And I think you did a good job removing these twigs down here. So I think that your likelihood of getting a really good score has gone way up. But you have to do it. It has to be cleaner. And that's going to be the hard part. So what's the telltale sign is that, you've got this striation that's coming down, and then it gets interrupted with these weird little clone marks that you have in here. There's weird little clone marks. And you can hope that a judge doesn't see it, but I can see it at this level. So I would just say, be really careful with that.
And I changed the crop a lot on it too.
Oh, okay. Now, Photoshop has they have a beta that's out that has generative AI where you can just basically select something and it will remove it and redraw in. Now, in our competitions, you're not allowed to do that. No AI allowed. But for your own personal work, it may help you remove that. because it should redraw the striations in there. So only if you wanted to do that, but I think you got a good image here. All right. Any other comments on this image? We got 3 more to go through. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So our next one, Miss Virginia. So this was a really interesting image to me. Like right off the bat, when I saw the thumbnail, I thought, I like the color. I like, the idea of having a model in there with these old planes and everything. The thing that I'm struggling with this one is our lighting. And whether you use an off-camera strobe or it's just it feels like an off-camera strobe. It doesn't feel like that sunlight. It's really harsh, and it's creating a harsh shadow under her neck. It's overlighting the prop of the plane, and I don't feel like her pose is natural for that situation. Her face is definitely overexposed. I would have suggested that, a different pose, maybe back against the wing or something, leaning in a little bit sexier, more casual way. I think being behind the prop, there's also a lot going on around her, trying to get the name in there doesn't necessarily add to this image. It adds a lot of space. You could certainly crop, do some dodging and burning, bring down the highlights on that prop would help a lot. And you might get yourself a much stronger image out of there. I mean, I'm thinking it always wants to crop the wrong crop ratio. Let's do unconstrained. So I don't know, that prop is really dramatic. The thing is just really drawing a lot of attention. So if we were to bring it down and focus on her, something like that, I think would happen, would help it quite a bit. But still, the lighting in her face isn't super attractive. So it's gonna be a challenging image. Frederick, what do you say? What say you?
Yeah. I mean, you're right, because look at the shadows under the plane. So there was not a whole lot of clouds on that day, making softer shadows, and those harsh shadows, like the shadows underneath the plane, are going to translate to the face of our subject, right, and cast micro shadows there, which aren't going to be particularly flattering in a portrait like this. I agree with you, Troy. Yeah, the blade of the plane is dominant. It's really heavy, and with a yellow tip on there as well. And the words draw us into, of course, like faces and eyes. Our brains want to read whatever words are located in the frame. So we go to Miss Virginia, and then we sort of get trapped in that little decal on the propeller as well. So I might consider getting rid of that decal on the propeller if it's not part of the overall image, right? And it's not gonna insult people by taking that off of there, because that may be there because it's significant in some way. But if not, I might take that out of there. One, B, you can't do a whole lot about the lighting that this was shot in, but you can, maybe soften it like Troy was doing, a little vignette on her face, and drop down the rest of the image. Compositionally, the hand on the lower left of the frame, again, I feel like it's too close to the edge of the frame there. It's pulling me out of the frame and making me a little bit uncomfortable that it's that close to the edge of the frame. Like, think of the edges of the frame like they're chainsaws, right? So if the hand gets too close to that chainsaw, yeah. And the elbow, the disembodied elbow, and the hand at the top there. I might, because this looks like the artist was going for a pinup look here, I might consider doing a post-processing treatment that lends itself to that sort of an old-timey look, or even straight black and white on the shot, just to kind of lean into that. And by doing that, you might mask some of the other the somewhat harsh lighting in this shot. You might mask that a little bit. Our model already has kind of a 50s looking kind of style going on there. So yeah, exactly. So we're starting to kind of just sort of playing into we're finishing the story of the shot in post-processing and adding that 50s look to it. But yeah, other than that, really cool shot.
Yeah, I agree, Frederick, everything you said. when you have an opportunity to photograph something like this, you have to ask yourself, I have the plane and I have this beautiful model. Who is my subject? Who do I want to feature? And right now they're competing. Like neither one of them really has dominance in the frame. And, maybe bringing her out in front of the plane where it's just her in a cutesy pose with the plane in the background, sort of shallow depth of field, that kind of thing, or just out of frame. That would be wonderful. It would really highlight her. If you wanted to show off the plane, maybe what you do is you put her back by the back end of the plane, or you put her off to the side, you photograph the plane, and she's an element in the frame, right? And that way, it's clear who our subject is. Good framing on both subjects. This is one of those scenarios where, we've already mentioned is that, you're there, you're looking at it. There's all this like cool creative stuff firing in your brain. You're like, ooh, I like this. Ooh, I like that. And you can't just stack them. Each one has to have their role in the frame. So yeah, cool shot. Fun. I'm sure it was a really fun shoot. I'm sure she loved it too. So
yeah.
All right. We got two more. All right. Make sure I'm zoomed out. Okay. Frederick, go ahead, my friend.
Yeah. I love these long exposures like this. These are really, really cool. I mean, Troy, I'm a fan of time travel in photography and, representing a lot of time in one single frame, which is what this does. So this feels very almost Jurassic Park-ish, when I look at it. You can almost feel the mist of the water. So really cool. Maybe in terms of constructive criticism on a shot like this, probably two things. I'd want that water to maybe pop out a little bit, maybe suppress the greens a little bit, or vice versa, so that either way, so there's a little bit more contrast between the water and the foliage around it. And then secondly, whenever I see a waterfall, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Whenever I see a waterfall, like in that other shot, I want to know where it's going. I want to see the destination of this water. I feel like I'm left hanging when I see part of the waterfall and I don't know where it ended up. And I feel like that where it ends up is usually as beautiful or more beautiful than the falling water itself. So this may have been better executed as a vertical shot showing the destination of the water and where it all kind of ends up at the bottom, if possible. I mean, there may have been a parking lot or a bunch of humans down there messing up the shot, but if there weren't, I'd love to see the bottom of this, have a little bit more room around it so that I can see it in situ and kind of get a feel for the grandeur of the shot instead of as a sliver and a mystery that we're getting right now. But cool shot. I love these long exposures for sure. They're amazing.
Yeah, I agree. The challenge with seeing something like this is where to focus your attention. Where do you want your viewer to look? What is your favorite part of this image? The way that it's presented, we have a lot of things competing. So the lower right-hand corner is clearly overexposed. That we just can't have, right? That's just not going to do well in competition, and it's just the nature of that. So I'm assuming that part of the image was in sun and the rest of it was like under the canopy and is a little bit more shadowed. So that's going to be our challenge. So if we can't do anything with that, well, we can always crop it. I think you have some really amazing elements in here that you could work with. I'm trying to get it, maybe something like that. So, and then if we create like a vignette where this is not going to look good in the overall raw, I mean, without raw and JPEG, but let me create a little contrast and maybe bring everything up a bit. So even the right side is a little bit too much. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to look into this image and I'm trying to see like, where is it that I like it the best? And what I like is I like this. I like this guy right here. I like this right here. That's like my favorite spot because it's sharp, it's in focus. It feels like that's the hero and the rest of it is supportive. And so cropping and burning and figuring out that vibe with that, I think you still have a meritable image in here with some cropping and stuff. So, and then the next image, Frederick, I think you get your wish where you can see where the water's going.
Hey, thank you. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is fantastic, right? So you see the long exposure, we see where the water's going, so that mystery is solved with this shot. It's not just, leaving us hanging with where could that water end up. Compositionally, I think we don't need so much of the foreground in here. In fact, that the rock on the lower right is pulling me out of the image a little bit, and I feel like maybe it's not, but I feel like there's a little tilt in the shot to the left. Maybe it's not, but even if it's not, it feels like there's an illusion that it is. So I'd want it straight. The water, the long exposure on the water dragging the shutter, maybe a little too long on this one, because we're losing all detail in the water. It turns to cotton after a certain point, and we can't really, we know it's in motion, but we're not getting that movement anymore. We're just getting sort of a soft blur in there. So I think maybe dial back the exposure time a little bit of a shorter exposure so we could see that water moving. Maybe crop up a little bit, make sure that horizon is straight. To crop up a little bit, maybe in a little bit on the sides to make those two waterfalls in the middle our hero. We don't need to lose all the kind of child waterfalls, but make it more obvious that those two are the ones that you want me to look at right there. Yeah, exactly. So now, up into the rule of thirds there, and voila, there we go. Yeah, just like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got this. You got this tack. Yeah, you got this really sharp rock right here in the middle, which I think is your hero. I would certainly make an effort to like burn down like that guy right there. That rock in the foreground, and you don't make it look as obvious as I'm doing because I'm doing it in a JPEG, but take some of these highlights down. I think that you would have a really powerful image. This would also look really good in black and white. I know we say that kind of stuff a lot. I'm not gonna do it on the layer. I know we say that kind of stuff a lot, but in all honesty, I think that this has way too much color, and the maker has pushed the color a lot. And I can tell you because the sky is oversaturated. We're getting contamination in the shadows, in the waterfall over here and over here. And that's just the saturation slider being pushed too much. And we also tend to get this little halo. Let me go all the way back. You tend to see like this bright blue spot in this top left corner. Like that's clipping. Yeah. That's just too much. It's almost like a sky was added. You can see in the trees, the edges of the trees right here, that blue. To me, that's like somebody dropped a sky in there. And maybe not, but it's oversaturated. See, this is blurry right here, which is weird. Something's going on. Yeah, right. Something's going on right in here. Yeah, it's just disconcerting the way that looks. So something's happening up there. See, it's sharp over here. It's sharp over here, but right here it's not. But you've got that oversaturation happening. And a dust spot right there.
Uh-oh.
And then there's like another one there.
Uh-oh.
Another one there. No. Yeah, I can't help it. They're everywhere.
Those are UFOs, Troy.
Yeah, those are UFOs. So, even in this image, I think if you bring the saturation down just a tad bit, I think it's more appealing. But also black and white. Think about that. Now the waterfalls tend to come out. I'm okay with how long the exposure is on the waterfalls. I'm not okay with the fact that we have this overexposed area, though. We don't want that.
Right.
So
right.
Very meaty image, a lot of stuff going on in there that can be cleaned up, cropped. You're getting some hazy flare off on that left-hand side. This whole left-hand side has a little haze flare going on, maybe from the mist of the water or whatever. So cropping in, tuning and tweaking a little bit, I think you'd have a really, really powerful image. I think you'd do really good there. And that is all of our images, Frederick. What? That's everything.
That's it.
That's it.
It was cool shots, guys. Really cool.
Yeah, it was only like 14 or 15 images. It was a nice handful. So
yeah, very good.
Does anybody have any questions? Any comments? Any thoughts?
Well, thanks for all that.
Of course.
Pleasure.
My pleasure. I appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, very good. And of course, the disclaimer is it's our opinion, right? It's your art. but it's it's our opinion. Hopefully it'll inspire you to think about looking at your image differently, and play with it so that when you're looking at it through the camera, you can get something closer to what you want by the time you get it on the computer, and then you can finish those images. It's a lifelong goal. I've been doing it for 30 years. Trust me, it's the same it's the same thing. I bring my images home and I'm like, Frederick, look at this shot. That's yours? Great. It was nice when I was there.
Keep experimenting, or Maggie, actually, keep experimenting with those long exposures and stuff like that. That was me back, like when I was in the military. I mean, that's the joy of photography. There's always something new to experiment with, and some technique that may be old hat for another photographer. It's brand new to you, and you find a new twist on it. And, there's something current that you can apply that to, and it's a whole new thing. So that's the whole joy of the stuff, is finding these little techniques, playing with them, and then applying them when appropriate in your work. So yeah, keep playing around. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Yep. Well, all right, guys, everybody have an amazing rest of your evening. Hopefully you are all going to enter images in image competition so that you can take it even a step further. Be brave, do that. If you have any questions, you can email me, troy@ieppv.com, or image comp. What is it? What is yours, Brad? Image comp something. Just email me, Troy@IEPPV. That's easy. And I'll get it to Brad if you have any questions, or Tim or Kim. So, and Frederick, thank you so much for giving us part of your evening to come hang out and critique and on my turf. That's kind of
You're
cool.
welcome.
Yeah,
always a pleasure.
Fun.
Thank
you both.
Yep, you got it. Everybody have a great evening. You got it. Take care. Good night, everybody.
All right. See you guys.
Good night.